All right, well, we're here for the first Think Big of the Verify stage. And the title of this Verify is How Can GitLab Be the Next Generation for Continuous Integration? And the goals of the Think Big session are to really think through some meaty topics around strategic investments that we can make across GitLab. And for this particular investment, a goal that I have is to populate some validation backlog issues for our investments. And this particular topic came up out of a discussion that I was having with Darren. And we were thinking through what were some of the ways that we can consider challenging ourselves to invest in our innovation for CI, and really to answer questions like, how can GitLab do CI better? So some of the challenges that we're looking at when we think about GitLab and CI, our customers, Gartner, analysts, the market are saying that customers in the market are perplexed by development in CI environments, the time that it takes to troubleshoot CI when we think about passing integration tests, and even just the burden of writing tests. So there's lots of different meaty problems that we can solve. So what I'm hoping to accomplish in this Think Big is to take a couple of these challenges and think through what we can do in GitLab CI and take them apart and potentially take some action items forward in issues and research them, validate them, and create some MVCs. Sound good? I pre-populated some questions that we can start with broadly on how can we do GitLab CI better. But I also have some bullet points around the problems and challenges. And then of course, from the issue, the high points that we previously discussed. So we can start with any of these areas. I'll leave it up to how the group would like to start this conversation. I'm flexible. We only have 30 minutes, so I want to be efficient with our time, but I'm also flexible. Darren, tell me, how can we do GitLab CI better?
No, yeah, I guess the way I would frame up the conversation, and I'm sure, and hopefully everyone can hear me okay, I'm sure Thao and Dov have thought about this, but just the way I was thinking about this and just kind of stepping back would be, if all of us got here today were working in a startup in some mythical place, mythical remote land, and we were trying to do CI differently. We would try to disrupt the existing players in the CI space, GitLab, GitHub, and so on. Would we do anything differently? So that's the first question. I think that's the question I had framed to you. Is like, would we do anything, this kind of stepping back, would we do anything differently? And if the answer is no, then we just continue down the path in terms of our current strategic direction. But I was asked, to me, that's kind of how you disrupt the market, right? That's kind of what happens when you see someone new show up. It's like they're always like, oh, we didn't think about that, and they disrupt the market. So can we disrupt ourselves? And if the answer is no, it's fine. But that's the kind of the place I was starting from. And then to make it more tangible for the engineers in the room, kind of going to the brass tacks, at the end of the day right now, a CI platform is still it's not still, I mean, it is, it's executing a script, right? It's basically executing workflows. And I guess, I don't know if we can get away from that. I don't know if you can get away from having to script a workflow to build a piece of software, right? So if all else has been equal, can you truly disrupt this space? I don't know. So that's the question I was asking of myself.
So I saw a comment that Darren had written, I think somewhere in this issue, and I can't find it right now, but it made me think about the idea of like the like the user of a CI system and it being kind of like I can't think of the right word, but it's just like it just works. It's like they don't have to spend a bunch of time on it. It's just sort of like I I'm not awake yet today. Like it's kind of transparent. Like you put your code there and it does the thing that it's supposed to do. And I think like that's like, it's not really disruptive, because I think that's what other competitors do. But I think that's like the thing that people want is they want to get the job done. They want to like get their code and run it, leverage the features, and they don't want to have to like understand a lot of the internals. So like the mapping in my head is like comparing Heroku to Kubernetes. Like Heroku, you push your code and it just figures it out and does it for you. Kubernetes is you're writing a ton of YAML and you're like, you have to understand like what these concepts are under the hood and like what these primitives are that you're interfacing with in order to get it to work. And I think that's like the, I don't know, holy grail for CI. It's just like, here's my code to do the thing I want it to do, and don't ask me any questions, just do it.
I think that's the holy grail for like your startup user, and even then your like customer of the CI system. I think we should also think about the persona of the operator, who for us may be the person ultimately writing the check and making that buying decision. Not only do I want it to get green fast or set up my first pipelines fast, I want them to be efficient always. So can we start to do things like repair the pipeline? Can we start to do things like tell you where inefficient pipelines are that are A, slowing teams down, and B, costing you money? I think that's how you would disrupt that space. And that's where we're at, and just SaaS in general is not just let me do things, but tell me where I can go make things more efficient.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Like if you think about the person setting it up, you set it up one time, but then you run it, maybe hundreds of thousands of times. And that's where the actual like impact is, like on slowing your team down or your cost or flaky tests. Like all of those things become, amplified when it's done over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think there's two use cases. There's the user who's starting CI for the first time, and they would benefit from an auto-generating smart pipeline, kind of to sum up what Darby was describing. It's a smart pipeline. It knows what jobs it needs based on the code language or the what's being tested, the code itself. Auto-generating smart pipeline, but then there is, I think, just equally important, the use case of someone who has pipelines already. It would be nice if they can put it into some thing that is yet to exist that says, I'm going to have you do smart analytics on it, a smart analysis of my pipeline, and spit out all the suggestions on how I would optimize this. That for a user that already has a complex pipeline would be kind of revolutionary. As like an algorithm that is, I don't know, smart optimization. I hate using that word over and over again, but it's that concept of it does it for you, especially if you're not the original author of that pipeline. You don't understand it all, but if we had a feature or a tool that did it for them, yeah, that says, hey, you have these 5 jobs running sequentially, but we see that there's no dependency. This is a suggested configuration that will run them in parallel, connect the dependencies. This one status would depend on the status of that job, but this other one, not necessarily. I don't know. It's almost like, can we build a feature that does part of the job of a DevOps engineer, right?
Another way, maybe is related, maybe is not. Like I've seen like DevOps engineers that struggle with CI, mainly because sometimes it's not predictable. They want to run a pipeline and they want to know that this pipeline will pass, and there won't be any surprises on the way. We miss something or something fail, and now I need to rerun the whole thing. So making it very predictable. I know Cheryl wrote like AI, so maybe something with AI, maybe something statistical that we can provide to our user, like what is the chances that this pipeline will be successful or fail, something like that, and like how can you improve that before you will hit the pipeline and like have this like runners running and spend all the CI minutes. And there's also like a question from our users that keeps on coming, and it really bugs me because I don't know how to solve it, is that they want to test their pipeline. They want somehow to run the pipeline without running the pipeline. And it's always coming. They want to test it locally. They want to test like subset of their pipeline because there are some areas that they are not feel certain about, and then they need to run the whole thing just to get struggled by like this, like I would say like job 8. So something around this area can be very helpful for us to disrupt the market, I would think.
What are some of the reasons that job is going to fail though? Is it things upstream that they're changing and then the job fails? Is it configuration? I mean, I know there's probably lots, but is there a common theme from what you've been hearing, Dov?
No, it's a good question. I didn't hear like a common theme. I actually didn't ask like why your pipeline is failing, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, because we could do things like capture some of the traffic and stub some things based on if you have 100 pipeline runs, here's generally what the inputs into that job look like. Just reuse the most common ones and then run it locally on a local runner or something, or in a sandbox or something if you're on .com.
Just to add on to what Dov was saying, yeah, the reason I mentioned AI or machine learning really is if we have the data already, we should be leveraging this and presenting this to our users, not only like in like an analytics or graphical form, but like look as already mentioning, like looking to optimize what they currently have. We can start looking at how we can predict what they want. I think that would really disrupt our space. Jackie, did you want to add on there?
Just violently agreeing. I guess I shouldn't say violently. Really agreeing. I think it's complemented by the ML ops direction. I just linked the direction page there. There's already created issues about things that you can do with ML ops on our runners, being able to predict and optimize cost detection and cost modeling related to CI minutes. I think that if we're looking at the operator's perspective, and we consider predictive models and creating Bayesian models, so using ML, not AI, and we forecast out for users before they even run a pipeline, what could your costs be based on this pipeline? And if you were to apply or rewrite your YAML file using these kinds of things, you could save this much in a year. This is a particularly disruptive paradigm for operations teams. And it's something that we could really benefit our customers with, especially if we're able to suggest, if you convert all of these tools over to using GitLab, you're able to reduce your costs, not only by consolidating tools, but by using these kinds of patterns across your organization. So not only are they reducing with tool consolidation, but by pipeline efficiency as well. So there's a lot of different plays that we can take by doing predictive models.
The next step there is then making an MR to their project with an updated YAML file.
Exactly. That's you're totally right.
I mean, that's what I just put in my point there. That's what we had in Secure, right? When we found a
Sorry,
vulnerability.
Sam.
It's all right. No, like we're on the same page. This is good. Like, you know, when we found a vulnerability, we wanted to auto create an MR that fixes it for you, and we struggled with bots and things like that because it's quite intrusive. So there's steps to get to that. I think people freak out a little bit if we were to create loads of MRs saying, "Hey, this fixes your things." So there's you know, we have to look at the annoyance factor. But if I could have an MR that says, "Hey, this will save you thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever a year," like I think everyone would welcome that, right?
Our competitors do that, right? Dependabot does that.
If you tie that to a dashboard and give that button clicking to open the MR to a manager or something, that takes us out of the we opened MRs for you and more of a here's cost savings you could realize by leveraging GitLab and open the MR to do it. You did it yourself.
Oh, that just gave me a thought. You know, there was a commercial a while back about security. I forgot. I don't know what the product was. Wasn't that good a commercial. Can't remember the product. But the user was saying it was equivalating to security monitoring versus security, like actually doing security patching, I guess. And the commercial was this guy was in a bank that was being robbed. And he says, and one of the people on the ground that says, do something. And he says, oh, I'm not a security guard. I'm a security monitor. And he says, so I'm doing my job to tell you we're being robbed. So same thing with the linter. If we could take it from telling the user what's wrong to telling the user what's wrong, and here's an MR I just created, and you merge it to fix your CI configuration, that would be even better than monitoring that you know, that something's wrong with your config. Here's a suggestion. If you like it, merge. It's a one-click solve. That would be awesome.
I love that. It's like a kind of what you're saying, James. It's like an easy CI cost budget pocketbooker. I don't know, better name for that. Not obviously not a marketer. Sorry, y'all, failing you. But that's a really great reference to. I think from a thinking big perspective, we're addressing the full life cycle here of a developer, an operator, an end-to-end team. And by integrating this ops for all theme, that we're trying to really solve the pain point and making it really easy for troubleshooting, for integrating CI and really disrupting, but also kind of thinking through this push button piece. If we weren't to leverage ML, so say that this other group is responsible for all of the ML architecture. So let's say that we have to rely on them for implementing ML architecture, and we're waiting on them for that. What could we do independently, kind of thinking small in the same session, given that we have like 5 minutes left? What do you think would be a next actionable step for driving innovation? Do you think it's pursuing things like more dashboarding or more cost integration? What do you think would be more impactful for users to empower them based on this discussion?
If it's just I want faster resolution on pipelines, just tell me which job fails the most often. Just give me a rough count of this job is failing the most out of all of your pipeline runs. Because that's gonna, if I'm looking at a stack ranked list of those, that's the one I'm gonna go tackle first and try to debug.
So something I've been thinking about, I'm not sure if this is like documented well or not, but think we kind of touched on this a little bit with getting fast feedback on pipelines. Some things I've noticed just playing with things on my own is it's not always easy for me to know, like if I make a change to enable a feature. One thing I enabled recently was the test failure reporter. Like it took me a while to get it right because I had to, like my script was wrong. I was doing something stupid, but like I had to keep pushing and running and waiting. And like, I know there's ways to do this locally. I think we could probably make it easier for people to understand how to do that. Like kind of quick, like copy these commands, do this thing, run this. Now you can like execute your builds locally and try them out before you have to push it to GitLab and wait, 10 minutes or whatever it is to get feedback. I think that could enable unlocking a lot of those things pretty quickly.
I love that. Tell me about this matrix, right, Darren?
Now that you asked me to tell you about the matrix, as soon as my screen completely messed up, I was just kind of like thinking off the top of my head really quickly, and it's like a really convoluted thought, so bear with me. I wanted to double check kind of where our current growth is happening. I know we have a strategic thrust, obviously, on GitLab SaaS. So assuming for a moment that our growth is happening in GitLab SaaS, and then double checking what kind of users or companies is driving that growth. I was thinking that if we were to kind of think about it from a perspective of just to focus on GitLab SaaS and like the first time users, if we were to continue the point that Thal was making about auto-generating smart pipelines and picking up the thought from Darby about making it super easy, that first time user on GitLab SaaS, maybe that's the first kind of like matrix there. And like, hey, first time users should have like a really easy onboarding experience to GitLab CI, that auto-generated pipeline, right? And so maybe some of our focus is on that. And then as you move across sort of the adoption journey, I hate using those terms, but as you move across the adoption journey, you become a more advanced user, or potentially the sales motion is geared towards a self-managed kind of customer. That's kind of where you can now focus on, okay, that person or that user persona or that type of organization needs the more advanced capabilities. They need to look under the hood. They need the linter plus auto merge concept from Found. They need the AI ML concept from Cheryl. They need the cost saving concept from James. So that's kind of what I was kind of like thinking through my head. And just because I think I love marketing so much, I went to the first time user because I'm just such a marketing geek and I know it doesn't drive growth and adoption. But I just love hearing like a first time user say, wow, man, GitLab CI is so super cool and easy. It's the best CI in the world. I know that's not going to drive our long-term revenue, but just kind of that like sentiment in the market is just so interesting to me. Anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking like the matrix.
That's something that we can also pair with growth on too. So if we create like a great landing spot with the first time user experience on SaaS, we can really tie this into growth and in our TAMs and professional services. And if we build a usable product experience around these auto-generated pipelines for people on SaaS, this is something that we can really create a great product and user experience around. And I could see this being this could be a really great user generating opportunity, at least for an experiment.
I would ask like why first of all, it's a good idea, but why limited to SaaS only? Why not do it both for SaaS and self-managed?
Oh no, it'll definitely be there for both, but I would just kind of
Feel fast on SaaS.
Thinking about that person that's kind of like checking out GitLab for the first time, more than likely they're, oh, let me just be a first time user on SaaS. But no, the functionality should be there in both, yeah.
Hey, so I have a question. Maybe everyone already talks about this, but how often do we talk about like the first time user being like someone at a company experimenting, trying out CI systems, and like that experience being like leading them into further implementations with GitLab? Like I know at a company I worked at, I evaluated a bunch of CI systems. Circle CI was the fastest to get going, and that's what I rolled out to the company. I'm not sure how often that is like a persona we consider, but
So I know that the growth team and the marketing teams, it's not codified in our personas as a real persona. So it's not a role that we consider in our research or evaluation. But I know that the growth team has looked at that in our onboarding experience. It's just not in our research.
Got it. Okay.
I know that we are at time, but is this something, as a quick check, that you would want to be recurring on a quarterly basis, this kind of a discussion? You can say yes, no. Okay.
Yes.
Great. And then I am open to also including engineers. I'm open to having this be on a distribution list, this being a larger group. I'll tag that in this issue, the next generation CI. So if we want to have a follow-up discussion on this topic where we include technical resources and dive into more of these issues, we can do like a think small and go deeper on that. I think that might be a fruitful conversation. But thank you all for this time. I think it was useful for me. I hope it was useful for you. Really appreciate your investment here.
I found that hilarious 17-second commercial. I linked to it.
Thank
the
you.
screen monitor.
Y'all are awesome. Have a good one, okay?
Cheers.